Welcome to the Vine Resources podcast show. Welcome to another edition of the Vine Resources podcast show. Today I've got Stefan Fountain. Stefan's the CEO of PRCO on the line with me. Stefan, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Stefan, thanks again. And why don't you share with our listeners a little bit about the company, please?
Yes, of course. So PRCO is a platform that automates and fixes PR workflows for global brands. What we found is that in the PR industry, we often say that the PR industry has a PR problem. And sadly, I agree with that. And the reason is that a lot of people just don't trust the news anymore. You know, there's this huge clickbait push where there's no real journalism going on, and there's no accountability or truth. And what we're trying to do, and this is like a long-term, 5-year, 7-year, whatever term goal, is to really try and restore the trust between the public and the companies. And if you go back to the original definition of PR, it's about earning the public's trust. So what we do is we provide a platform where companies have a consistent brand story they can deliver across different geographies and different offices. So there's really a much more efficient way for teams to be able to deliver their message. And that's what we do.
And your office is based in the Netherlands?
Correct. We're in Amsterdam in a building called TQ, which is one of the Google for Entrepreneurs buildings worldwide. And it's a pretty cool place to be.
And I know you're 10 employees and growing. And where's your customers generally based?
They're really all over the place. So we have a lot of customers in the United States. We have quite a few in the UK, and of course we have quite a few here in Holland, but also Germany, all over the place.
Fantastic. Well, look, we'll get stuck into the questions if that's all right, Stefan. And can you share with our listeners what a typical day in the business looks like for you as the CEO of the company?
Yeah, I was reading this question as like a typical day. I don't think there is such a thing. Every day is different, and sometimes I feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants. It's, as a startup CEO, it's really that you're building the plane while you're flying it. It's in the air, and so there's some fires to extinguish all the time. But I really focus now on enabling my team to do the right things and to do them correctly. One of the big learnings of last year is we were trying to do a lot of things at the same time. So we narrowed it down to focus on particular things. And then so my day is really grabbing those things and focusing to see if we can improve each individual part of that. So often that will be parts of a sales funnel I'll pick up. Sometimes it's I'll actually do the support work myself. And sometimes it's calling with customers, figuring out what their challenges are. And sometimes it's sitting with the product guys to really reduce the complexity of the plans that they've got for building new products.
Fantastic. And can you perhaps name anyone who's been had an impact on you throughout your career so far? Maybe it's a leader, maybe it's a mentor to you, and how that person impacted you.
Yeah, great question. So there's two sides to that. So there's people directly that I know that I've had a lot of dealings with. I think most of the time I will go into a conversation with other founders and try and get as much as I can from that. So, and usually those are startup founders in similar phase, or maybe they're a little bit further. And there's a lot of this in the building that I'm at right now. So that's very useful. So, but to name names, I think one of the guys that's helped me recently a lot is one of the founders of The Next Web. And it's not the big name that everybody knows, at least here in Holland, Boris. It's his co-founder, Patrick Deleuve, who seems to be able to find very creative solutions to any situation. Whether you're talking with investors and you're trying to figure out a win-win situation, or when you're talking with a customer and there's some issues around budget and freeing things up. It's for me, that's been a really inspiring way to think out of the box and to come up with stuff. Sometimes it seems like you're stuck, and he'll find some way to do it, right? Because one of the things is you don't want to give a discount just to win a deal, then you're sort of short selling yourself. So how can you how can you actually add more value without it costing you or without it, the customer feeling screwed over. So I think there's a cool way to do that, and Patrick's been an inspiration to sort of figure that out.
Fantastic. And what are you doing at the organisation to perhaps from the top to keep your employees engaged?
Oh, this has been something recently that I've been really like a typical day. This is one of the things I've been doing recently a lot, figuring out how do you build company culture. And if we look at what I was telling you before about this goal of fixing PR, so we're not a PR agency, we're really a PR software, just like Salesforce is for salespeople. We do this for PR and comms team, whether it's an in-house team or agencies. And this is a big mountain to climb to fix PR. So the real thing is, what's the next step that as a company we need to achieve to get? So that's the first thing to really create culture, is a clear goal. And then all these other things that we want to do in the future, become irrelevant, or they're future problems. So first is like, what's the problem for this year? And then I sat with my team and said, okay, what are the behaviors as a team that we need in order to get there? And we distilled sort of what are the limiting beliefs we think about ourselves as a company, or ourselves as individual professionals, and then turn that around and figure out, okay, what's a liberating truth? So one of the things I believe still a little bit about myself, is that I'm not a ruthless enough CEO to make it big, and I think if you turn that belief around into a liberating belief or a liberating truth, it's actually the fact that I care more about people as an asset, where you're honest and transparent about things. And if you do that at the right moment, the right time, it actually builds trust. And we looked at this set of core values that we have as a company, and then we looked at the norms of behavior that we want. And one of the things we're realizing, some guys, they weren't really present in the stand-up or in some meetings. And so one of the norms we said is, we want you to be present. And when you're there, you're on. And so figuring out that as a norm and agreeing as a team, from norms comes actual behavior. And now what we're seeing is that the team is sort of self-correcting, saying, hey, remember that norm. We've defined this thing as how we want to do stuff. One of the other norms is that we schedule learning and growth, right? So that means that also the one-on-ones we have are the responsibility also of the team itself, not just me as the CEO. Everybody is responsible for that. One of the values is a shared commitment to win. And the norm there is that we actually sit down together and figure out, okay, what's necessary? We face the hard truths together. So all of these things, if we've got this side where we've created these core values, and I haven't said these are our values, we really went together and figured that out. And then we defined the norms, say these are the expected behaviors, and from that comes the actual behavior. And I think that's what defines culture. And once you start seeing that behavior, then you start to achieve your goals. So that's sort of my way of looking at that.
Stefan, what is the biggest challenge you believe facing business leaders today?
Yeah, great question. I think it's about being real. I think it's so easy to get distracted in all sorts of things that don't matter. And I think as what defines leadership as leadership is really sort of saying, hey, these are the things that matter. These are the things you can make an impact and change. And not realizing where your skills or things that you can actually do, and where you have an agency to have an impact on the world. And we can get distracted on that. So that's for you personally as a leader, but also the team that you're working on, to sort of help them focus on the stuff that they're really good at. I think that's the biggest thing, because once people start focusing for themselves or as a group on the stuff they're really good at, and and they can make an impact, it changes everything. Whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in communications, whether you're in sales, if you love the stuff you're doing, you can overcome so much things. So getting stuck in this mediocrity because it's not your thing, and that's really about leadership. It's providing people with knowing who they are, what they can do, and where to go.
What's the best piece of business advice that you've ever received?
Think big, act small. Think big. I mean, I've always been somebody that could think big, but I always struggled executing correctly. It's like, okay, great, I have this great plan. Now, how do we actually get there? And being able to execute small means, the day-to-day steps to get along the path. You need to do them correctly and in the right direction. Sometimes you need to go slowly, figure things out. Sometimes you need to go faster and take big steps. Sometimes it's irrelevant. You need to go around something, and executing correctly, it's really remarkably hard. But you can only do that step by step in a small basis. But if you don't have a big idea, you can't face that hardness of how hard it is to actually take those steps. So you need both of those things. And that brings me back to the previous answer about passion. If you have the passion to do something, you can handle a lot of bad stuff. And it's really if you see the change, the mutations, and that gives you energy, that'll overcome any frustration. So the mutation needs to be bigger than the frustration, and that's what provides a perpetuum mobile to actually get somewhere. It's life's a journey, not a destination, and if you enjoy that journey, boom, So those two things: think big, act small.
How do you help a new employee understand the culture of the company?
I sit them down and I give them a 50-page manual, and then they have to read that through, and I do a test. No, I'm kidding. I do it through the magical art of drinking copious amounts of beer. We have every Friday afternoon, we sit together and we do demos. We share what we've done the week, what we've learned that week. We all give a weekly rating between 1 and 10. And we do that indeed with a nice cold beer.
Fantastic. What's the one mistake you witness business leaders making more frequently than others?
Yeah, another great question. I think that one of the things that we tend to do is we get stuck in things and not asking for help. We sit down and we try and grudge it out. Or sometimes, it's much more effective to just say, I don't know how to do this. I'm stuck. How do I get help? Example for me personally is at PRCO. We're struggling with our bookkeeping systems and coupling it with our billing. And I was like, I'm not really a numbers guy in that sort of detailed way. I try and sort of see the patterns. And here I just couldn't get the bookkeeping system working with the billing and knowing, how's our invoicing. And in the end, it was just like, okay, I need help. So I got help, and then we actually fixed it pretty quickly. And but it's, I took too long to ask for help there. It was like, I think I was busy like 3 or 4 months just doing really, stupid work and repetitive stupid work where I just needed some help. So I think that's the biggest thing that, we tend to do as leaders.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. How do you see your industry changing in the next few years, and how do you believe that will affect your ability to attract and hire and retain the best talent?
Oh, those are 3 questions. So talent, I think, so attracting talent is one question, right? So attracting talent is easy if you have a really cool culture, combined with a great mission, right? David Pink's, I think it's David Pink or Daniel Pink. There's this really cool animated YouTube video where he talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And if you have those 3 things, man, you're set. Everyone wants that, because something more important than money is autonomy, mastery, purpose. And if you can offer those, then you can get the best people. So I think a great culture attracts great people. Are you playing championship, Premier League, or Champions League? And if you're in the right league, you and this is not sort of like I'm a well-known brand. This is culture leagues, right? If you got the right culture, you can get people to join. In terms of the greatest mission I think our industry is facing, I think there's 2 sides to it. One is the push from the industry for more transparency around data. And so there's a new law called the GDPR, which is coming out May 25th, where you can't just share data around, and it's much more, and this is a very good thing, because, we hate this method where a lot of PR companies, they'll spray and then they'll pray that something gets picked up. It's spam, basically. And so this GDPR, it says you're not allowed to do that anymore, whether it's for sales or PR or whatever. Now, in this case, because it's journalism, there's a slightly different angle because journalists actually want to be contacted, right? So if you can highly target those journalists with the right message, it does become interesting for them. But legally, you're not allowed to do that anymore. So there's this legal balance of how do you connect a good news story with real news of a company and a real, something cool that a brand is saying to the right journalist. That's something that we're solving using AI and machine learning and NLP. So I think that's the second side to it. So there's the sort of the privacy push, which is a good thing. There's a transparency push coming from the market, where there's corporate responsibility. Things are organic. We want to know where the cow that we're eating comes from. What was his name or her name, almost. And I think the same thing is like, hey, where's the story coming from? Who's emailing me? There's a chain of responsibility through the whole story. And we can do that. It's sort of like a blockchain of news where we can trace where is this coming from? What's the truth here? And that's the sort of the next 5 to 10 years. We're going to see a lot more of the chain of responsibility of figuring out what's being said by whom, where, and a lot of that's going to be driven by AI. And I think the big winners are the ones that collect a lot of data around what's being written where and by whom. It's just like Tesla now I think they're harvesting 11 million data points each day, or minutes each day, from their cars to figure out auto drive, right? And this is a really good thing for humanity, because in the city of Amsterdam, if you had a fleet of cars that are auto driving, you only need like 5,000 cars for the whole city of 1 million people, right? That means our whole streets will be cleared and no more parks, no more nothing. It's just going to be these auto driving cars. So yes, it sounds scary because there's death machines driven by Skynet, but we're going to have a much safer and or maybe more nice place because there's no cars parked everywhere. And I think the same thing is there for news. If we do this correctly, we're going to have less spam, less noise, less clickbait. So that's my positive side of it. I think there's also some dark angles to this that we need to solve as society. But this is why we need people with passion doing these things so that we can actually fix it correctly in the right way.
Stefan, thank you for that. Thanks for sharing that insight. If you had your time again and were giving your 20-year-old self advice, what would you say to yourself?
I would say, it's the think big part. But I was doing that at 20. I wasn't acting small at 20. I was also acting big. It's like, this thing, I shouldn't look at that. This thing, I shouldn't look at that. Where the details matter so much. And without details of execution of your day-to-day things, you're not going to get anywhere. And so really mastering the craft. It's a little bit, a master of none, or jack of all trades, master of none. And there's a story about the animals in the forest, right? Where they all have their own task, like a bird can fly, and they're all like at the same school. And they need to do these different things, like learn how to fly, climb a tree, dig a hole. And the mole can dig a hole perfectly, but he can't fly and he can't climb a tree. Right, so it ends up that the donkey actually gets the highest grades overall because he's the best at doing all of them combined. Where each of us individually have our own specific talents that we should focus on, and that also means knowing what you can't do. So if I would tell this animal story to my 20-year-old self and say, develop what you're really good at and fantastic at, and find other people that to help you out for the things that you're not so good at. Finance is one of those, in my case.
Stefan, thank you so much for being so open and sharing your story. How can people reach out to you, get in touch with you, and reach out to the company?
Yeah, cool. So my email is stefan@pr.co. So any communication managers, marketing directors, or CMOs or CCOs, communications, can reach out. We'd love to talk about how we can help your brand go global in a consistent and correct way. How you can tell a very rich brand story that resonates with your audience, and and how to deal with all this push for transparency. And so we'd love to help.
Thank you, Stefan, and thanks for joining us, and best of luck for the business.
Thank you very much. Cheers.